Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rob here of the Lair of OmnusI, and today is my special privilege to present with you a little chat that I had. You see, I frequently like to keep a long-range view of what's going on in the gaming hobby, and sometimes some of the up-and-comers can be their own fascinating stories. One such that was brought before me, and I'll give credit, I met him through Mitch McFetteridge, who is the administrator and pretty darn good caretaker of the group on Facebook, Tabletop Role-Playing Games. Swell guy, impressive collection himself. But Mitch is great for being a signal lighter for a lot of people. He routinely posts about Kickstarters that he's excited about and ones that his friends are involved with or have backed. One that he introduced that caught my eye, and I really couldn't fail to do so, is called GooeyCube. And this is a Kickstarter for a world that had already come out and been presented before people the year prior. And I, through this Kickstarter and through the introduction, ended up meeting Alphinius Goo. Alphinius is a fictional character, of course. The flesh and blood writer and everything of GooeyCube is someone very different, but he prefers his professional title. And didn't second guess me on that, so I'm just going to use his professional title here as Alphinius. And we had a nice chat about his GooeyCube group, how they formed, how the Kickstarter went, things about their world, so that I can introduce you to Alphinius, and you can see, exactly what a charming and well-thought person he is. For purposes of, full disclosure, I'm not doing a full review on GooeyCube on this. I do intend to give reviews on some of the GooeyCube products, but this is just a chance for you to meet Alphinius and to find out some things about his company, his ambitions, and his design process that makes his products really, really good and exciting. Now, with this, I basically just kind of presented the questions and let him take the lead. That's the way I prefer to do these kind of interviews. They're far more interesting than anything I have to say. So if you didn't hear a lot about me, that's by design, and I'm glad for that. The video was taken in Zoom and recorded through Zoom, so it's a little back and forth, but I trust that you'll be able to follow along just fine. It was an entirely enjoyable meetup, and I hope you enjoy it and have as good of a time as I did. If you're still interested in GooeyCube, as I make this, he is still in the middle of his Kickstarter. So if you're interested in a fine role-playing game adventure and a new fantasy world to explore, his Kickstarter offers both elements from his world building, the city that he's currently deep in constructing, as well as the several stage adventure path that is one of the richest and deepest I've ever seen for building and setting up an adventure for you and your players. And if you yourself are a player, steer your GM towards this, or maybe help them pick this up. It isn't inexpensive, to be fair. You can easily pick up a module that's just a thin book that'll give you a few nights of adventure. These are much more in-depth and give you a lot of assets and resources that will help you long after you finish this campaign. At least that's his hope, and what I would hope a thrifty GM would do. So that's my introduction. Hopefully you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed interviewing Alphinius Goo, the spokesperson for GooeyCube. Today I am honored to be joined by my new friend, Alphinius Goo, the spokesperson for GooeyCube.
Yes, just like that, Rob. Haha.
And you so far have a very successful Kickstarter going for a tantalizing bundle of adventures. Do you want to give a sales pitch for that right away? Because I know I won't stop talking about it. But...
Well, I appreciate that, Rob. First of all, thank you. It's marvelous to be here with you and enjoying this time together. And yes, we are having some good fortune with our Kickstarter. I think that is partially because of the community that we have. We have this wonderful group of people, which Rob, because you've seen it, right? So, and the dedication of those folks to immersive gaming and sort of taking your games to a little bit different level, combined with, I think, the quality of our materials, has made a lot of people sort of fans and friends, you know. And so we do have our original 3 chapters that we produced prior to the Kickstarter, and our world book, which were all produced prior to the Kickstarter. And then we have the next 2 chapters of the campaign, which are in the Kickstarter as new stuff. Yeah. And then we have the next 2 world lore books, which are in the Kickstarter, which is new stuff. And then we have the most marvelous thing, which is the City of Darkenhaven, which, you know, you've had a chance to see a little bit about it. You know, it's I think it's going to be the greatest city, or certainly one of the greatest cities that was ever made in fantasy role-playing game. I know that is a bold claim, but it's what I believe. And then, of course,
you basically have 2 cities sandwiched on top of each other.
It is true.
So that's kind of helps quite a bit.
Yes, exactly right.
Now, unless I'm wrong, GooeyCube started relatively recently. You launched it at the Gen Con in 2018, was it?
2019.
2019.
Yeah, so we began in 2018 to make all the stuff. And then we decided, you know, we got to get into a convention. And so we started looking at all these different conventions. And of course, we couldn't get into any of them because we didn't realize you have to start like a year and a half ahead of time, you know. And then we wanted to get into Gen Con, and they said it's not possible. And then they said, well, there might be a way. There's a thing called Entrepreneurs Row. Mm-hmm. And so what we did was we submitted all this stuff, and we ended up getting on Entrepreneurs Row, which was fun. And I was going to sneeze there for a moment, but perhaps I am not. We will see in a moment. Anyway, so we got to Entrepreneurs. Yes, that's right. Go like this. So we thought we got to Entrepreneurs Row, and we were kind of worried because people told us it's okay, but it's way on the edge, and a lot of people don't go by there and all that stuff. But anyway, we sold very, very well. Lots of people loved our stuff. We had a really good convention. We met a lot of friends, and then we began to go to other conventions after that. We went to Dragon Con, we went to Galaxy Con, and we really were doing very, very well. And then, of course, 2020 decided that it was not going to allow us to sell anything more at conventions come about February, March, right? And so it was a pretty tough year on us, as well as I know many other people. You know, my heart goes out to a lot of folks who have had a tough year. And now the Kickstarter is really going to help us to sort of make up a little bit for some of our difficulties in 2020. So we're very, very happy about that. So
that's very good. Yeah. Going right now from where you stand, you are, as the interweb reports, so far you are up to over $100,000 out of a $10,000 goal.
Yes.
You have over 300. You have about 325 people who believe in your product and have given you money to make your upcoming modules a reality, and more of what you're doing with 10 days left to go. So you've still got plenty of time. There's always a rush at the end too. So,
yes. And we have somewhere around 2,000 people now that are actually following the Kickstarter. So I hear that's a good thing. That's what people tell me. If you've got a good group of followers, that is what kind of pushes the end run, if you will, whatever they call that, you know, sort of that jump.
It especially helps after you've had successful resolution of a Kickstarter and people are happy with their products. Moving forward, if you have that kind of a network, it means the world is open to you. That's why places like, Monty Cook Games are so successful. They have that huge block of people who follow everything they do. And it sounds like you've got a really good start on that. And at Gen Con, when you were there, what materials did you have to sell and present to people when you were just starting out and getting your foot in the door?
So the first campaign that we've done takes place in Verdestia, which is the northwesterly continent of Ziathe, which is the world. Mm-hmm. And so we determined that we would at least have enough about the world that people could understand what Ziathe was. Mm-hmm. And so that is our Cyclopedia Ziathica Volume 1, which is called The Weirded World. So we brought that to Gen Con. And then we had the first 2 chapters of the Red Star Rising campaign, which is The Darkest Dream and The Foulest of Spirits. And so we had both of those, and that really got a great response. Well, our stuff is very different, Rob. You've seen, it's not a perfect bound book. It's not a magazette, right? It's a box. It's about 5.5 pounds.
We're definitely going to talk about the structure of your game and your product and everything. I'm just trying to frame, where you started
Yes.
and the direction that you're going right now. Because quite honestly, when you see a lot of people who come in on Entrepreneurs Row at a con, they have the beta version of their game and a dream, and they're selling that. You had finalized product. Sounds like if you're still had the same quality then that what I've seen from what I was sent by your team, you started out in a really good place, and that really helped you probably to stand out above the people who were on Entrepreneurs Row around you, and obviously
I
got a
think
lot
that's
of people
true.
excited.
Yes, I think that's true. The thing is, Rob, you've heard me preach this because we're friends, and we talk and stuff like that. I really believe that game masters, the thing they care about more than anything else is just to hear at the end of the night or the end of the day or whatever it was from these players, that was a great game, right? That's all we really want as game masters, just to have our players enjoy themselves, and of course have us to enjoy ourselves too, right? So everybody has a good time, right?
Mhm.
I mean, obviously there's other motivations as well, but I think for many game masters, that's the sort of the pinnacle. Just tell me we had a good time, because I work pretty hard to try to make this game fun for you, right? That's what I
Right.
do.
Hmm.
And I believe that our materials make it far easier for a game master to run a really enthralling, immersive game, while it also makes that adventure more enthralling and immersive and exciting for the players. And that's the real thing that I think that we do differently. And that's why I think it resonates.
Very solid. I have a couple of questions though about your campaign and everything.
Of
First of
course.
all, was this spawned off of somebody's own very own created tabletop game? Was that you?
Yes. So the story, if you wouldn't, I'll try and do it fast. I won't take a long time, but I'll give it a
Sure.
quick tale. So we have our day jobs, which without our day jobs, there would be no GooeyCube because GooeyCube hasn't made us any money at all, right? In fact, it's kind of gone the other way quite substantially.
Yeah.
The Kickstarter notwithstanding, right? So we have a little advertising agency, a little marketing company in Colorado Springs. And I've been gaming for 40 years. I was white box guy, right? So white box second edition, kind of played around with 3.5, went back to second edition, never did 4, played Pathfinder for about 8-10 years, and then fought it around a little bit with Tunnels and Trolls and GURPS, and played around with Hackmaster, and some of these other marvelous little, things that have been put out by different wonderful places over the years.
Sure.
Anyway, to ramble it forward, I'm at this little agency, and we have some creative people there, designers and people who write stuff and things like that. And as I'm sort of working with them, I realize that all they do is play computer games. That's what they play.
Okay.
And I'm a big imagination person. I think imagination is very important in the marketing business and in all this stuff, right? And so I say to these young people, I say, listen, I play these TTRPGs, a lot. You want to come to my house and see what it's like? And they're like, yeah, let's. We always wanted to, right? So they come to the house, and a couple of our existing players are there, and there's like 5 of them. So we had 7 around the table. It's a decent number on the table, a little big, but decent number. We play a few times, and they get the bug, right? They get the hook, right? So we play it for a while longer, and then they start saying, we got to publish this. And I look at them and I'm like, you're crazy, And then the next thing you know, I'm making this stuff. So yes, much of it began at my home table. Much of it was added to by some of our friends who are working with us at the agency, right? At our little agency. And then of course, what most don't, which is that Xyothe is also a collaborative world. And so we are taking submissions from many of our friends and fans and actually putting those into the materials. So it's really, that was the genesis, but now we're moving beyond the genesis to the dream.
Well, it sounds like you're living your dream, because I know a lot of game masters, myself included, would absolutely love to see their hard work actually put in print and put out in front of everybody. And as a result, we only just can glare in envy at people like Keith Baker and his Eberron world, or the Matt Mercers and their Wildermounts and all that. And you actually are going and making that happen. So gotta take my hat off to you there, sir. It's good to have the right people around you too to encourage you, and it sounds like you ended up in a really good spot, which is excellent.
Well, I do think, we didn't spare money on quality of art. We didn't spare money on quality of writing. I really do think I've got a lot of feedback from people now. Now we've been out since, September of 2019. And I've gotten a lot of emails from people since that time now. People of game masters who say, I've been game mastering for 20 years. I'm playing with a group of players that have been playing for 20 years, and we are having some of the best games we've ever had. New game masters who say, you know what, your stuff made it so much easier for me to run the game. And I think that's really the key to it. We are definitely we're a marvelous tale. The Darkest Dream and the Red Star Rising campaign is a marvelous tale. But beyond being a marvelous tale, we have put a lot of accoutrements and nuances and innovations into the materials that make the game easier to run for the game master, which of course makes it better for the players, right? And of course for the game master, right? So it's both.
So, well, let's start talking about your product now, because I think that's one of the exciting things that really you can't lampshade. Okay, now, as you said, the experience of your products is a bit different from what most people get. Obviously, you've got your encyclopedias, which are books full of fantastic art, loaded with tons of details about your game world,
yes,
and the peoples and the cultures and the races and things that make them unique. And then when you get into your game, you start giving out things that help out with people having access to new classes that are built into your world, which I'll tell you this, game masters are always looking for more expansions like that, both for our own characters and to give the players something to give them more flexibility so they can create the characters they really are dreaming of.
Yes.
First of all, somebody taking one of your modules it's a box. It's not a thin book with thin paper cover with a blue shaded map on the inside. Oh, no. This is a different creature altogether. Usually when we think box, we think of an entire set that you could set a campaign world around. And while, it is a module, it is finite, it has a beginning and an end, and there's stuff that happens in between. There's so much more than any other module I've ever seen. How did you come up with the formula for how much to pack in with that material so that, as you said, you give all the details for the game master who's starting it up and trying to figure out, how do I scale this to my players? You've answered that. You'd make it so they don't have to do any work.
Correct.
Whenever a game master would come to a part where they usually have to start ad-libbing, there's really very little reason to, because you've already thought of those things. How did you guys come to that level when nobody else is really doing that?
I don't think that, I think they could. And I think people have thought about it. The problem is it's much cheaper to make a perfect bound book like this and sell it for $50. And you made it, somewhere, overseas for a very cheap price in the production. So you have much better margin, right, on that kind of thing. When you talk about something that's about the same price point, but it's got, 60 full color handouts of all the locations and the creatures that they're going to encounter. When it's got 40, 50, 60 non-player character portraits of all the non-player characters that people meet in the course of the adventure. When it has all the magic items put in little cards so that you don't have to look back in the book and do all the stuff you have to do, or write them down on Post-it notes or whatever you have to do to hand out the magic items to people, or read them out of the book, right? And then all of a sudden you know how this works, Rob. 5 sessions later, they say to you, you know that +7 Vorpal Battle Axe of Doom that you gave me five chapters ago, or five sessions ago? And I say, I sort of remember that being a +1 short sword. They're like, no, it was a +7 Vorpal blade of doom, you know, and you're like, I don't think so. So you know how it goes, right? But all that stuff. Right?
That gutsy, but yeah, I know what some people will try to get away with.
So anyway, so we, you know, but it's all the things, you know, you've seen it. We have 2 books, not one. We have the adventure book, which is how you follow the adventure.
Right.
And then we have the Game Master book on the side. And so the Game Master book has all of the encounters, and the adventure book tells you the encounter is here. So you open up the adventure book and you open up the Game Master book, right, next to each other, laying behind your screen, and you don't have to flip. There's none of that kind of stuff going on. We level balance all the encounters because you know as well as I that one person's level 1 adventure is another person's level 3. You know, if you've got 7 people around the table and they're all good players, that's a whole different thing than 4 newbies.
Yes.
And so this idea of saying this is a level 3 adventure is kind of what do they call it? It's like the pirate's code, right? It's sort of more like guidelines.
Very true.
So we account for that by level balancing the encounters. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, I found quite a long time ago that props and handouts helped the immersion. I found that for me and for the players, having a portrait of a non-player character instead of just trying to make them up out of my mind all the time helped me to remember what they sounded like, helped me to remember what they look like, helped the players to engage with them better, made role play better. So all of these things sort of came from my table, but also from people's, like your videos, you know, things that you talk about, you know, people get lots of information from lots of places, right? And so we just kind of put it together and said, you know what, if I was going to game master and I was going to buy something, what would I buy that I would love? And that's what we made into a box.
It's interesting that some places think that adding more is just a matter of stuffing something with as much as possible. I'm reminded of, what's that company? Beetle and Grimm's, that makes these premium deluxe packages for an adventure campaign, and they stuff toys and trinkets and stuff like that.
Candles.
But all of that stuff is well, it's pretty, but it's just something that you're going to say, okay, well, you found this. Here you go. You can look at it, you can fiddle with it, and then when you're done, you put it into the pile of other stuff that you've got lying around. Whereas art is reusable.
Correct.
Characters you can meet again, or you can take those characters out and use them for other adventures too. Yes. All that stuff is modular. So it's not just a one and done and you'll never use those again, which I find to be pretty useful and practical at the same time.
Rob, you are very insightful, because this was another thing that was in my mind, because it is very rare that I would buy something and not, mess around with it a little bit. Right. Mm-hmm. And so my thought processes were that, and I've reused modules, right? So different groups, because you're playing with different groups, you're like, you know what, I could run that one tonight. This is perfect, because it's perfect for this play. So you put it in or whatever. And my thought process was, well, goodness gracious, if people are going to buy a box, why not try to give them some things that they could use again and again? So it really makes the utility of the box set valuable. So, like, for example, in chapter 1, The Darkest Dream, there's a beginning, sort of a pre-adventure that's called the Sinister Chambers. You could literally hive off that Sinister Chambers and put it almost anywhere and just use it as a sort of a one-shot or two-shot night thing. You could obviously take all of the non-player character portraits and reuse them for other people in other situations in your games. Many of the handouts you could reuse again and have them. So our minds went to, how do we make something that was really had a lot of utility for a game master and also made the game better? And that's sort of what ended up in the box was all of that, right? Magic item cards that you could, use again and again, all that stuff.
Yes. I also like, too, the simple fact that you made this game with the idea of permanency.
Yes.
Not that you've got it, pages are going to crease, the spine is going to fall apart. The spiral bound thing is not something anybody else is really doing in any great. Generally, if I was going to say print out a PDF, that's probably how I'd want it. The stuff lasts longer, it's easier to use, it can lay flat on the table. That's an option you conscientiously chose, which which is a good idea. Was that your idea, or was that something the team kind of came up with?
No, that one has actually been something I've complained about for years. You know, when people moved from the magazettes, which did lay flat, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When they moved from the magazettes to the perfect bound books, and I started buying perfect bound books, and of course, every once in a while you get one of those that the back cracks easily, right? You open it up and you're kind of holding it down and crack, and now your $60 is basically, you know, a pile of paper that you have to figure out how to, you know, spiral bind, right? So
Right.
so that one was definitely in my mind, was for a long time, was something that I just said, I don't understand why you wouldn't do this. I also never understood why it wouldn't be 2 books, because this is the flipping problem, right? Encounters are in the back, tail is in the front. You have to do this all the time, and if you need, you know, and it just made it very cumbersome. Again, you know, fluidity is important in game mastering. You don't want times where you're sitting there reading things and you want to keep the action sort of going, and all that flipping and flopping is problematic. And so that's really where we ended up there. You know, same thing with magic items. All that reading them off or having to write them on post-it notes or all that stuff, you know, was kind of a pain in the butt. So quite a while ago, you know, and I'm not the one who innovated this. Is obviously you can buy magic item cards, right?
Sure, got it.
But I'd flip them a card, and I was done. Now we moved on to the next thing. They've already got it, you know. So I really believe the reason why it hasn't moved more in this direction is because it sucks on the margin. Now, it's just much more expensive to make one of our boxes, and you really gotta keep the price point pretty much where it is. I think, you know, to make it approachable for people, because Beetle and Grimm stuff is beautiful. Yes, it's marvelous, it's wonderful, but it is also very expensive. You know,
$300 for a single campaign.
Yes, yeah, and it's beautiful, but it is expensive. You know, so and honestly, you know, they have a lot of accoutrements, but not much artwork, which I think is the most important thing. I think the artwork is very important.
Yeah. So we talked about the quality of your products, and we talked about where you started and everything. How about where you're going? Obviously, you've got some future projects built into your Kickstarter. You're going to continue on with your Red Star Rising campaign. We've also talked a little bit in chat about the other projects you want to do, more cyclopedias outlining your world. And the thing I'm the most excited about, because like I told you, us game masters, we love variety, we love choices, and you're wedded to 5th edition pretty solidly, right?
For the current, but we are working. So I've got a couple of secret teams going on. So you know, we have a little group that's I've just kind of been talking to them about Pathfinder. And how we might be able to do a little messing around with Pathfinder, and we are looking at that. We're actually possibly looking at another game system. I won't mention that yet because I don't want to overstep, you know, overhang the market, so to speak.
You might want to keep an eye on Pathfinder and see how they're doing with their 2nd edition. See if they recover from the cleaving.
I know.
I could definitely suggest a few up and coming games though that would be interesting to delve into.
Well, Savage Worlds obviously probably is one that you probably would say to me, and I like them, and I, you know,
seems to be a lot of people to do.
Yeah, and they're sort of our kind of folks too, right? They're a little company, and they're sort of upstarts and maybe innovating a little bit, you know, which I like, you know, a little bit of innovation. So who knows, you know, what's going to happen? But I am concerned about 2nd edition because I do think the jury appears to be out right now a little bit, right? You know, so. We'll have to wait and see kind of how that shakes out. But we are definitely looking at different options.
Now, I noticed on your Kickstarter, one of the things that made me drool a little bit is your die. I love dice.
We have a dice set coming. Can I give you a secret? Right. So
yes.
We're starting to beginning this thing called Gooey dice. Okay, yes. And so we obviously put out the skill modifier die, which is one of my house rules, one of the things that I do, which is this, because, you know, here's the thing, you know, you and I, we're playing poker, right? We're playing poker, and I'm a pretty good poker player, and so are you, and we can look at each other and think, that guy's bluffing, right? That guy's bluffing. I know he's bluffing, right?
Sure.
Now, in this game, If you roll a 20, you pretty much know that the guy was bluffing.
Sure.
But in real life, that doesn't happen. In real life, you never know for sure. You just have a good feeling about it. So that's why I like my skill modifier roll. I don't use it for fine traps and things that could be lethal. I let the dice fall where they may for that. But things like persuasion, things like bluffs, things like jumping on a horse or searching for some kind of thing in the wall, I roll this 10-sider. And I'll either add to your roll or I'll subtract from your roll depending on the number. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, or +1, +2, +2, +3, +4, +5. And I have done that for many years, and I think people enjoy it. It doesn't have a huge effect on anything that could harm the party, but it has lots of good effects on sort of the interactions, so that nobody really knows, did they really, really fail, or did they really, really succeed for sure, which makes it more realistic.
Yeah, uncertainty dice can be a lot of fun and can throw a level of chaos. There's a few games that have used that, but not often. Most people really like to know their probabilities for success and be able to hedge their bets a little bit. So
yes,
having that
you're
is
still
kind
going
of
to roll a 20. You roll a 20, you still know your worst case scenario is still a 15.
Exactly.
Right. So you have the confidence, right? You still don't lose your confidence, but but you're never 100% sure, which is, I think, better. It's mystery, intrigue, searching, secrets, right? This is part of the game, right? This is all this, that's why I don't like auto detect magic, right? Walk into the room, detect magic, you see all the magic. I don't like that. So I have nerfed that a little bit. So all the warlock lovers out there in the world, sorry.
That's fair, especially with magical traps and people just assuming they can bypass those because they can see them easily.
Yes, spot on.
Okay, so that's most of everything. I just have a few miscellaneous questions. First of all, are there stats for Alphinius Goo somewhere?
So Alphinius Goo will appear in Darkenhaven because Alphinius Goo actually has a tower up the Mistroon River from Darkenhaven, but is often in Darkenhaven. And so, yes, he's going to be statted, but there are lots of them, Rob, because you know this, right? We have people, lots of our friends now. It started off with just a couple, and now it's lots of people we actually have one of our artists, one of our really good portrait artists. We want, you've seen our portraits, we want them beautiful, right? And we take your picture and we take your character and we make your picture your character, and then that person, that NPC, is going to be memorialized in the Weirded World. And so we have quite a number of those that will appear in the Darkenhaven and Gloomport supplements, and we have a few that you'll find as you run around the campaigns. And this is a plan of ours. In fact, I have a dream that in the future, every non-player character in the world of Xayathay will be someone's personage, every major one.
That's pretty ambitious.
I think it's going to happen. I really do. I think it's going to happen.
Well, if anybody can make that happen, it's you.
Well, listen, here's the thing. This is a passion project for me. I mean, this is basically, I'm working weekends and nights because I have to do a day job still, right? Sure. So I'm working weekends and nights to do this. And, damn it, if I'm going to go through all this hell, so to speak, that's not really fair. It's just a lot of work. I'm having a great time, right? But if I'm going to go through all this, I doggone well want a world that I would want to adventure in and be proud of and be excited about. And of course, because I've always had this dream that you could make a collaborative one, right? And I'm expecting, Rob, I'm expecting you to be in the next submission. I'm expecting you to put your place in there and this thing in the Essenverd. I'm expecting that of you. So you take care of business now.
Well, if you have room in your world for the 9 Stars Wizarding Academy and a grumpy old diviner named Lord Cadrian de Flynn, you have my permission to put him in.
Well, we will talk about that, sir. That's exactly right. Sounds marvelous. We'll figure out the city where we can put it and a place where that old diviner could fart around, yes, so to speak.
That sounds like fun. Yeah. All right.
But I didn't really answer your question. We
Yes.
do have a set of Gooey dice, I think at the $130,000 level.
Okay.
So we're at 100 and we're getting close to 105 right now. Like you said, 10 days to go. So it's pretty likely, based on everything people tell me, that we're going to get pretty close to that $140,000 level.
If you track like most Kickstarters do, and I have seen your advertisements on Facebook, I'm pretty solid that you'll get there.
Well, we got our first set ever of Gooey dice.
Poke Mitch and get him to keep putting out the news. He's really good for proselytizing.
He is phenomenal, and I love Mitch. And my shout out to Mitch McFetrich, who also has a character in the Weirded World. Yes, he does. Yes, and now really, he has been so wonderful and so helpful. And I'm gonna do something nice for him when all this craziness is done. I'm not sure what yet. I'll buy him dinner. Or, I don't know. We'll figure out something. Send him a nice bottle of libation in the mail, or I don't know. Give him some Gooey Cube stuff. We'll see. But he has been so wonderful.
Just try to find something he doesn't have for his massive collection, and he'll be pretty happy. So one last thing, another one of my passion things is talking about Kickstarters. I've backed a bunch of them. I've seen a lot that have done well. I've seen a lot that have failed. Obviously, yours is succeeding as far as, hitting your goals and everything. And I know that you've done a lot of things that are always green flags that I see that a lot of people don't. First of all, you didn't oversell. You didn't have a whole bunch of stuff that isn't done. You have a lot of core things that I believe, according to your Kickstarter, you are shipping as soon as the Kickstarter is over, right? All the stuff that you already have in.
It has to clear the backer, the what do they call it? The pledge manager. You've got to get through that. But even people, if they'll do their pledge manager quickly and get it done, we'll try to ship even before the pledge manager closes. So because we want to try to take care of folks. There's people who've been waiting. They finished chapter 3. They're waiting on chapter 4. And I'm not sure if we can get chapter 4 done in that early January timeframe, but we're doggone sure going to try, So yes.
You didn't stuff it with a lot of other pie in the sky things like miniatures, and the dice are about the most extravagant thing. I think a lot of Kickstarters could really learn from your approach of having your product in hand and not just selling a dream, but showing we've already made this stuff and this is your first Kickstarter. So, you've definitely cleared the bar as far as being able to do it. Now, of course, the next step, producing. I am assuming that you and your team have set benchmarks for yourself that you are struggling like mad to hit, as far as lining up the art, getting the stuff produced, and then how has Kickstarter been for you?
So for us, it's fairly simple process. It's pretty hands off. They give you some articles you can read and those kinds of things, but there's not a lot of help as to what makes a good Kickstarter or a bad Kickstarter, other than what I would call very high level, sort of up here kind of ideas. Yep. But obviously their platform gives access people that you wouldn't probably talk to. I actually hoped that we would, because of our success, that we would sort of be served up a little more, or maybe one of those projects that we love kind of thing. And we didn't get any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can't complain. It was fairly easy to use the platform, all that kind of stuff. I give some props to Kickstarter in that regard. I would like to have had a little more knowledge and ability to really understand how to run these things better, but I don't know. They probably can't do that for all these, huge numbers of Kickstarters that are out there. They probably just can't.
Yeah, it's a pretty crowded market, but you seem to be doing pretty well. Going forward, are you already planning your next Kickstarter, or are you just going to concentrate on finishing this one first before you launch into your next?
So just to answer your first sort of question, we already have the artwork for chapter 4 and the artwork for chapter 5. Almost all is completed.
Excellent.
Much of chapter 4 has been written. It just isn't laid out yet. Sure. And about half of chapter 5 has already been written.
Okay.
The East Verdestia supplement is in process of writing right now. The West Verdestia supplement is nearly done. It is laid out. It just needs final editing and proofreading, and it's actually going to be available. And it is marvelous, Rob. It is so good, so good. And then the big swing, if you want to call it that, is Darkenhaven and the Gloomport.
Right.
Because you've seen our maps, right? I mean, just hand drawing the 6 maps for Darkenhaven, which is topside, which is 6 17 by 22 maps,
yep.
which are just spectacular. You know, you've seen the one that's already done, the one section.
Sure.
And then doing the 9 map sections for the Gloomport is going to take some months, right? Just to get there, right? And so that's a big swing. But our goal is to take those to Gen Con next year. Mm-hmm. And since that's our goal to take those to Gen Con next year, we need to get them done. So, you know, I've got a little team of people who are our friends and fans, who are the Darkenhaven Writers group, and they're going to start helping. And then our own team is going to work on some things internally. And I think we can make it. We're going to do our damnedest. That's for sure. Ha-ha! Once more into the breach.
You know, if you ever need any help with any of that stuff, I know a guy.
Marvelous.
No, it's really good to hear that you guys are doing well. Very exciting. I'm very happy that your Kickstarter has not been a nightmare that it has been for some people. I'm sure that when you go back to that well at some point, it'll be even bigger and even better. Just got to make sure you keep pounding, you know, passing your hat around out there and getting your word out to everybody whenever you can. A lot of those sites let you do it every week, so make sure every week you put that out. Yeah, that covers just about everything. I don't want to keep you too long. I thank you very much for the generosity of your time for coming here and chatting
with me. You as well,
my
friend. You as well. Thank you.
Well, you are my first guest interview at the Lair of OmnusI, so couldn't be happier and couldn't have found a nicer guy to chat with. So thank you very much. I'm gonna sign off here. This will be up on the Lair of OmnusI tomorrow at the very latest. So hopefully it'll be out soon enough to get some more ears out. I'll be advertising it all over the place to try to get some attention on your product, because I only hope the best for GooeyCube moving forward. Thank you very much one more time. And if ever you want to chat, or if anything else comes up that you want to get out in front of people, look me up. You know where I'm at.
Sure we'll be chatting every once in a while, and you're in the den, so you know what we're doing. We're having fun. I have a feeling you'll hang around. You seem our kind of gooey dude.
Well, you have a lot of exciting things, and only a fool would want to be part of exciting things. So thank you very much again, Alphinius. I do appreciate it. And until next time, thank you very much, and we'll be seeing you at some point featured here in the Lair of OmnusI. Thanks again, and farewell.